All right, we're going to move into the panel discussion in a moment. Before we do, I would like to introduce to you Mr. P. Dwarkanath. He is a group human capital, he's the Human Capital of Max India, the director of Human Capital of Max India Limited in New Delhi. And he heads the HR function and drives Max Group's intent to make work at Max India be a fulfilling experience. He has nearly 39 years of experience and has spent the last 27 years in GlaxoSmithKline. He is on the board of several companies, institutions, including GSK Consumer Healthcare Limited. He's the president of the National Human Resources Development Network, the president in Delhi Management Association, and the regional president of AIMA and treasurer of AIMA. He has won several awards, including the Pathfinders Award and the HR Professional of the Year. So please welcome Mr. P. Dwarkanath.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I have a very pleasant task to do it today. I've been titled as a moderator, which I likes it. I don't have to say anything. I'm not accountable for anything, but I need to do housekeeping and time management, which I'm very happy to do it because we have a very, very distinguished panelist here. I think the beauty of this panelist is the combination of their experiences, their backgrounds, and you know, when you're saying sometimes it's not the number of years like me, 41 years, 42 years is important, but the quality of experience you have, it's more important. So I would, without getting into much details about this panel discussion, very briefly I'll make an attempt to introduce the panelists and welcome them to this August gathering and ask them to come and occupy the seat on the dais. There is no specific order, but I think, you know, what I would like to get as a good corporate citizen and being perhaps a reasonably experienced professional, ladies first, please. Okay. So may now, I would like to just say, there's no any specific order for that. May I request Sujata Sudhindra, Head HR, Aditya Birla Finance Limited, to join us on the dais. She doesn't appear to be having, I couldn't believe till I read this, she has got 21 years rich experience. And Sujata is currently heading Human Resources and Administration for Aditya Birla Finance Limited, has been associated with Aditya Birla Group from 2008. She has been there for more than 4 years when she joined them to head the organization effectiveness for their financial services businesses, where she is responsible for articulating the strategy and roadmap for OD by bringing about an alignment of all units of Aditya Birla Financial Services Group. Please welcome Sujata. Now may I request, due to some personal commitment to his family, Mr. Srikanth Arimantaya, who was supposed to be here, Vice President, Chief of HR, Britannia Industry, is not able to join us today. So he has sent his apologies, but he is kind enough to depute one of his very talented colleagues, who will bring a very different perspective. This is typical Gen Y, who is here with us, and I would like to welcome Meghna Lama, who is the Regional HR Manager, West Britannia Industry. Meghna works in the area of talent management and engagement, employee life cycle management, and employee relations for the Western region of Britannia Industries. She has got more than 4 years experience, but I'm sure she would bring a very different perspective to these discussions today, bringing her from how she sees HR emerging in this current landscape, which we've been talking about, which Rajiv has presented today. Next, now, may I request, I don't have to introduce him, you already know him. He has given a very inspirational talk in the morning. I just happened to come when he was talking. I'm very impressed. I think he set the tone exceedingly well for this panel discussion, and who is none other than Rajiv Peshwaria. Please welcome Rajiv. He is the He is the Chief Executive Officer of ICLIP Leadership and Governance Center based in Malaysia, and he is author of many books, which includes Too Many Bosses, Too Few Leaders. Last but not the least, very distinguished. I think he gives a different perspective. He is a people's manager more than a tax expert. I would call him, because I was talking to him and his team, and they talk more about, he is no doubt a very, very well-reputed tax consultant in India and internationally, but he is more a people's man. That's how he has come here. And he will give a very different perspective, because we all talk from a HR and a people's practices. He gives, as a business leader, as a CEO, as a tax specialist, how he sees HR is emerging and evolving in the current era. He is none other than Mr. Nitish Desai, who is the founder and managing partner of Nitish Desai Associates. He is a multi-skilled, research-based law firm, Nitish Desai Associates, which has offices in Mumbai, Silicon Valley, Bangalore, and Singapore, in international and a corporate lawyer, researcher, and author, and a lecturer. Nitish was ranked as number 28 in Global Top 50 Gold List by Tax Business, a UK-based journal for the international tax community, after a worldwide survey of tax professionals who has influenced tax policies. So, ladies and gentlemen, so this is the panel today we have, and it's very interesting that we'll be talking on the strategic HR leadership. I think what Rajiv has set the tone today in the morning, and now we are getting into re-engineering your business genes. I think in the current environment where the landscape is changing, the environment is becoming very competitive. Today's world, business growth is to people's growth. Take away my factories, take away my financial resources, but leave my people. I will deliver another company in the next 5 years. Many people have said it. What does it mean? Most of them can be copied or tangibles, be it structures, be it infrastructure, be it technology. But talent is not easy to manage. We have plenty of people, but we don't have right kind of people. Now, what is it we need to do differently? And it is the people's management which makes a difference. It is the talent which makes a difference. India's greatest advantage today is not IT in that sense, but is Indian talent. But how do you develop our talent? How do you make them build capabilities is the biggest challenge. I would urge only one thing. HR has to play a very critical role. I have been in this profession for 40 years. I worked for one company, as been said rightly. I have not changed my name. But my company's name has changed 4 times. I have not changed my profession, though. Why? There's a transformation change has happened, mergers, acquisitions. I joined a company called Horlicks Limited. It becomes Beecham. Then Beecham merged with SmithKline. It becomes SmithKline Beecham. Then GlaxoWellcome merged with SmithKline Beecham. It's become GlaxoSmithKline. I have not changed my name. I have not changed my profession. But my company's name has changed 4 times. So what is happening? Change is happening around the world. And globe is a village. World is flat. So you can operate, need not operate from Mumbai. You can operate from Tumbatur. But what you need to have the right kind of people. You have the technology, but do you have that? And you need to build the capabilities from time to time. What was good 1970s, no longer good. What was HR in 70s will not apply today. I am coming from that generation dealing with guerra wars and employee relations, firefighting. World has changed. Now what you're talking about, organization glue, what Rajiv was talking about, how do you engage people, how do you develop, how do you motivate? But while HR has seen from the transactional to transformational, it's happening, it's emerging. Some businesses are looking good, some organizations have gone in advance, some of the HR leaders have reached the board level, some of them have become the CEOs. It is not a position which is important, but how you can add value to the business. You can add value to the business only you understand the business realities, the global competitive environment you are operating, and are you able to service your internal and external stakeholders? Number 3, are you able to engage your employees? Number 4, are you able to deliver? If you don't keep scoring, you are just practicing. That's what SmithKline Beecham CEO used to say. You can keep on playing in the nets, scoring lovely shots, but when you go to the test match arena, you need to be able to score runs. And HR sometimes seen as a support role, they talk much, but will they deliver? So I don't want to dwell too much on it because we've got a very distinguished panel with an excellent survey background. I think only I want to leave, there are 5 competencies which I would say for HR is important for any people's manager. I want to expand it. Just HR means not who has a title, any people's manager. Number 1, strategic focus. Number 2, business knowledge. Number 3, personal credibility. Number 4, IT savvy. Last but not the least, HR delivery. I think, if you apply this, how you can add value to the business, without said, there is a famous book written by Dave Aldrich and Wayne Brockbank where they said you can add value to the business by doing the value test. That means, how do you motivate, engage your field force, for example, to deliver and produce a better service or sell products at the cost of your competitor? How your customers will buy your products using their wallet to buy your products or services at the cost of others. That is the proof of the pudding in eating. So, are you able to do that? That is the challenge. I think we should leave that to the panelists. The structure is that we will request each of them to give their perspective for about 3 to 5 minutes, what they feel about the whole subject of strategic HR leadership, re-engineering your business genes, what their perspective. After they complete it, I would ask 1 or 2 questions perhaps to generate the feeling, and I would request much of this meaningful outcomes will come only when you ask some questions and keep us engaged and try to get the best out of the panelists. With that question, again, without sounding any specific order, I will start from that side. Sujata, can I just request you to talk about it for 3 to 5 minutes? What do you feel from your experience regarding the strategic HR leadership, and how do you want to align with the business, or how can add value to the business?
Good morning, everybody. Am I audible? Okay. I'm heading HR for Aditya Birla Finance. I take care of both the businesses. One is the NBFC, and one is the Infra NBFC. In my very simple English, let me just put across to you all my experiences. First thing I will be devoiding is jargons. I'll just start with a small story. A group of HR professionals and engineers together boarded a train to go to a conference, attend a conference. All the HR team, they had their tickets for themselves, and all the engineers put together, they just had 1 ticket. So the HR professionals wondered, how are these guys going to manage? So as the ticket collector had entered the compartment, one of the engineers said, the ticket collector has come. And then all these engineers, they get into the toilet. And then after checking the HR professional's ticket, the ticket collector, he goes to the toilet and says, ticket please. So quietly, 1 ticket slips in from the bottom. So the ticket collector is very happy. So these HR professionals think, okay, let's also try let's try the same trick once we are back. And then they buy 1 ticket, and they're astonished to see that the engineers do not buy a ticket. They'll say, how will these guys now get in? And then as all these ladies, all the HR professionals, they get into a toilet, and then one of the engineers come and says, the ticket collector is coming. The other guys go into the other toilet, and one of the engineer come and says, ticket please, and the ladies, the HR professionals, they'll slip in the ticket. So that 1 single ticket these engineers have taken. The reason why I'm telling you this is, we all talk so much about best practices. Trust me, it will not work unless and until you know what works for your organization will not work for the other organization. Unless I understand the pulse of my organization, I can't do a control C and a control V. We have to always be in the generation of next practices. Coming back to HR, my sense is, apart from the CEO, HR is the only function which will cut across, and it has all touch points, and it can reach to the length, breadth, and depth of the organization. It's such a critical function. I find it very difficult when people call HR as a support function. I go back and say, no, I'm your co-creator, I'm your business partner in true sense. So while this was my opinion, I have to validate, right? I can't go with my perceptions. So I went to a very junior employee and asked him a simple question. What do you understand by HR? Recruitment, ma'am. I said, apart from that, payroll. I was fairly disappointed. I said, might be he's too new in the organization. Let me go to a guy who has about 2-3 years of experience. I asked him, what do you understand by HR? Employee engagement. I said, what does that mean? You all will arrange offsites. You all will arrange picnics. Then, okay. Because something is hitting my perception. Something is challenging my perception. Then I go to a fairly, very, very senior person. I said, sir, what do you understand by HR? He said, it is a game of snakes and ladders. I said, snakes and ladders? I still fail to understand. He said, employees are like dice. HR treats us like dice, so it depends on the number. That is our performance rating that we get. I said, but rating we don't give. It's your business guys who gives. Only then I went and understood. And it's very difficult to explain, but the feeling was very bad that this is how HR has been positioned and we are still there. Now, when I say I'm a co-creator, when I'm a business partner, what kind of conversations I need to have? Trust me, nobody will give you power. You have to take it. But in order to take it, simple things that we need to do. Today, in HR, we have specialization. We'll say talent acquisition head. We have an L&D head. We have a compensation and benefit head. We have an administration head. My simple questions, do we have anybody here who's doing recruitment? Okay. Nobody. You are. In your organization, when you hire, of course, I'm sure you will look at what kind of incumbent you're getting into the organization is he aligning. But have you attended a sales call, or if you're in a manufacturing, have you spent time where you have employed or brought the guy into the system? No. That is what I asked my talent acquisition head. You are the one who is responsible, right? The business guy will have his view. When we are bringing in the guy, do we attend sales call? This is a reflection of ourselves to understand what kind of incumbents we are converting into employees and bringing into the organization. If there's an L&D head, right, I always ask my L&D head, are we participating in the product designing reviews? We are doing a lot of L&D, right? What kind of L&D am I doing? Is it 4-5 programs that I tick mark? Do I know where my business is going? Yes, in next 2 years, 3 years, fair enough. While I will look at the bigger picture, but what are the 2-3 important things that I need to do with my business guys? We should have product knowledge. If I go back to my comp and Ben head, I'll say, but what is the productivity analysis? Why is this guy asking for more employees? What is the existing guy doing? How many products is he selling? Why is the product not selling? Is it a geographical constraint? Is it a managerial problem? Is it the product design itself? Unless HR will not know this, we will remain as a Gyan center. The first thing, when I entered the organization 2 years back in this new business, the CFO said, I'm tired of conceptual knowledge that HR gives. That was the day that I had decided I'm not going to talk HR in terms of HR, but be a true business partner. HR should understand how is the economy today. What is the impact of the rupee on my business? Rupee is common to all of us. It does affect our business, right? Am I understanding? What are the 2-3 parameters that decides my business performance and where am I today? These kind of conversations will always help the business heads to understand, yes, here is a person who is adding value. Can you go back and challenge your guys? I find HR does not question, why do we become agony aunts and agony uncles? Sorry, I don't believe that we are agony aunts and agony uncles. If you decide to empower your employees by questioning, that is how innovation comes into play. So if one takeaway that I would like is, I'll say, if you have to be a HR partner in true sense, let's drop jargons. Let's not talk about strategy. Let's talk simple about execution. You have to be grounded to understand what is happening at the shop floor. And what are those 2-3 things that I as a HR professional should know? That is when you will add a lot of value to the boardroom. And trust me, HR professionals will be taken seriously if you learn to add value. which means you can't sit in your room or your cabin and talk about things. You have to go spend time with your business guys. What has worked well? What is your book size? I will just end this with a very small example. One of our very senior leaders said, Sujata, because it's appraisal time, he said, don't you think that you have to revisit our compensation structure? I said, of course. Don't you think you have to increase our fixed comp? I said, of course, I do agree. He was very baffled. He said, do you agree? I said, yes. Would you like to increase? I said, yes. Then he said, how? I said, okay. Tell me, for your line of business, what is the revenue you're generating? He said, this is the amount. I said, out of this revenue, what is your expenses? He said, this is the expenses. I said, okay. What is the percentage of increase that you want? He said, I'm looking for a 25%. I said, wonderful. Now to get 25% increase, what is the revenue that you should increase? Out of that, how would you like to decrease your expenses? And then he said, what about your products? And he got the answer himself. That will happen today if I know what is happening with each line of business. That is called, I think, in my limited knowledge and experience, is called a true HR business partner.
Thank you, Sujata. That's a wonderful talk based on your experience. Now, Meghna,
Yes.
it's your turn. You see, you have the greatest advantage being a Gen Y leader, and without trying to impose anything on you, feel free to express what you think about this. But I would like to only give one clue. I mean, I think, since you have seen more about the modern HR, if I can say, more contemporary HR, how you have joined this profession about 5 years back. How do you see this profession adding value to the business?
Sure. To start off with, good morning, everyone. An honor to be here on this dais. A couple of things about myself before I start off. As a young leader, as a Gen Y HR leader, and as an individual, I tend to do a lot of questioning. So I go to my managers, I go to my team, and I keep questioning and questioning and questioning. And thankfully, I'm in an organization that entertains these questions and answers and then thinks about it. That's one. Second, I tend to do a lot of internalization. I tend to look inwards and see what is it that I can do. So when I come to this topic of how can HR move from being transactional to transformational, how can we move from being operational to more strategic in nature? Two things that I do, I question and I introspect. The first question that comes to my mind is, am I, as a team, or am I as an individual, capable enough? Yeah. When I talk about capability, there are a couple of things that I think of. So do I have systems and processes that support my leap from transactional to transformational? Do I have the skill set within the team? Like Sujata rightly mentioned, do I understand business? Can I take that leap from being transactional to transformational? Do I have an HR structure, a delivery model that helps me move from being administrative to transformational in nature? And most important, I think this is something that a lot of us tend to ignore. Do I have metrics that support the way I think from moving from transactional to transformational? I'll just use one example. In recruitment, a lot of us must have done recruitment at some point of life as professionals. Are we stuck in still measuring the cycle time, the turnaround time? Do we still measure the number of positions we closed in a year? Or have we moved on to measuring the quality of our hire? Have we moved on to seeing the diversity mix that we have hired in the last 1 year? Have we moved on to see the time to proficiency of our new hires? Have we started evaluating our work basis the ratings that our new joinees get? These are the questions that I ask, and these are the questions that I think each one of us, and thankfully we do it in our team at Britannia, ask ourselves to ensure or to check whether we have reached that level of capability to take that leap from being operational to transformational, to take the leap from being administrative to being transformational. These are the kind of questions I ask. And like I said, I do a lot of introspection. So whether as an HR professional, whether as a team, I try to see what is it that I can do or we can do as a team so that line acknowledges that here is somebody who can add value. That's one question. The second question I ask is, okay, so I've got a seat on the table. So when I say I, it's my team. We've got a seat on the table. But does line acknowledge and accept what I say and what I want to drive? Do I have that say in the organization? And that brings me back to the first question. Have I built that kind of credibility? And how do I build credibility? So I'm just sharing one small example that we do at Britannia. The way we design and the way we run our processes, one, we need to be very, very clear and aligned. In Britannia, we have what we call the goal cascading and alignment that starts at the start of every year. So at the start, April of every year, our managing director, Ms. Vinita Bali, she freezes on her goals, which are the organizational goals. So for instance, this year, our goals are to drive competitiveness. When we say competitiveness, we have revenue targets, we have operating income targets. We have to drive innovation. That is our second pillar for this year. And third pillar, we have to drive operational excellence. So we define these and we cascade it down. Yeah? So that total alignment between what the organization wants, what each individual wants, this alignment is my responsibility as an HR professional to facilitate with the help of people processes. Yeah. So that is my role, the way I envisage it and the way I see it as a person who brings about a change management, who brings about the revolution, if I may call it so, from being transactional to transformational. That is my take on it.
Thank you, Meghana. It was a very excellent talk in terms of giving experiences. I was just wondering, I was thinking when you were talking about it, had I been in your position about 35 years back, when my boss was, due to personal reasons, couldn't make out and asked to go and sit in August gathering like this, I would have said, sorry, I can't do it. I think, that is the difference. I mean, I'm saying in a very positive sense. When you have in a HR profession, or any for a business leaders, I think it's very important you need to have the confidence, self-confidence on yourself. And it goes without, before I just hand over to Rajiv, in GlaxoSmithKline, we used to say one thing, everyone committed, everyone contributing. I think the moment you say leadership at all levels, leadership is not only at the top level, at the board level, at management level, senior management level, everyone can commit and contribute. I mean, these are the examples which is said will to question and challenge, passion, and then, prepared to face challenges. These are some of the traits and capabilities, I think, which we require in order to progress, especially in the area of people's management. Rajiv, I have many questions to ask you, but I confine to one question now and then leave it to the others when it turns comes of their audience. I just happen to, it's maybe a little bit provoking. You said something which really hit me. I think it's a very valid statement you made. When you're talking about leadership development, you said we are wasting about 80 billion US globally. Can you say what else we can do? If it's not a leadership development, is it that you are worried about the nomenclature or the title? Or is it something else which is bothering you? Or you have something innovative way of telling us which would be of great help?
How much time we got? Just kidding.
I think you got 3 minutes.
What you're raising is a very, very big question. I will try to address it.
Again, we can build on
in a very short period of time. So, see, of course, leadership development is important. Of course, developing leaders is you said leadership at every level. Yeah. I could not agree more. I only have a point of view which says that most of the money that is being spent on leadership development is spent on formulaic, copycat, role-play type, competency model, rear-view mirror type of approaches that, if you look at what made success last 10 years, and you, Gen Y, if you do what we did in the last 10 years, you'll be successful for the next 10 years. That does not hold anymore. Putting life into 4 quadrants and saying quadrant 1, quadrant 2, style 1, situation 1, as I said earlier, 1-minute manager, what do you do with the remaining 59 minutes? So that is not leadership, is what I was trying to say. Leadership, in my humble opinion, the only difference between a leader and a non-leader is that non-leaders give up. They lose out on energy to create a better future. We all feel upset. We all feel passionate about changing something, creating a better future, but most of us give up. Only leaders, Gandhi, the number of times they put him in jail, the number of times they tortured him, he only grew stronger. Where did he find that energy from? That's leadership. Howard Schultz, growing up in project housing in New York, in extreme poverty, creates Starbucks Coffee Company. How? Without a penny in his pocket. 230 rejections when he was trying to raise $4 million to buy Starbucks. How come he didn't give up after 230 doors slammed on his face? If we can answer that question, we will understand what is leadership. So leadership, in my opinion, is about finding that inner energy to not give up, and that does not come from formulaic training. It comes from finding out what your real purpose is and finding out what your values are, and then acting according to them. So that's what leadership development should focus on.
Thank you. Very well said. Thank you. I think it connects from what Sujata was saying. When you're talking about benchmarking, she said it very well, and now he explained it from a leadership perspective. No one size fits all. And you see, jargons will not help beyond that. I mean, you can talk about anything, psychometric testing, profiling, all that stuff. But it maybe has a means to achieve an end, not by an end itself. And I think we should be conscious, be it a business leaders or HR leaders using the jargons. I think, there is a flow about it and how they've seen in talking about benchmarking and aligning strategy and what leadership is. So now we switch to a different gear altogether. Here, it's more people practices, people's management, experts. Now he is an international tax expert. Now I see more in people's forums than apart from what he does for his profession. That is Nitin. And he would give his perspective. This is an outside view, if I can call, from a leadership perspective, from a CEO perspective, outside view. I was just going through a survey recently, Rajiv. They talked about the 10 key priorities of a CEO. One, they talked about the business growth. The second talked about talent. Then they talked about innovation, which you were talking about. I think, how we can be innovative. This is an outside view giving about people practices. So, Nitin, over to you. Nitin has got a short 3 slides presentation. Then after that, we'll take on.
I took leadership to get up and talk. And thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to give you a last word, because in the middle of all these top graduates, I even don't qualify to pass an entrance test at the management school. So please pardon me if I'm talking something very, very naive. I deal with, and thank you to Gaurav, for all the comments, but I deal with a breed that's most difficult in the world to deal with. That's what people think, and that's called lawyers. Everyone is independent thinker. Everybody is independent doer. Everyone is adversarial. Everyone needs a justification for every single small thing you do. And everyone wants everything in writing. Okay? So I think it's been a great experience for me over the last about 20, 25 years. I set up my own law firm sometime in 1990. And I studied over 100 organizations of the world before I set up my law firm. Because I didn't want to start an organization, but the head of Bear Stearns, which company went down under legal, he suggested I set up a law firm. So I said, okay, let me study how. It's all a people's profession, It's very much, unlike we don't sell biscuits, we don't know how to manufacture and produce anything. We only do unproductive work all the time and earn our money. So, when I looked at global scene of the law firms, what I found was this statistics. You can see the largest law firm in the world is Baker & McKinsey, 3,774 people, 558,000. Total revenue is 2.1 billion, and the total number of lawyers are 3,774, and 558,000 is per lawyer revenue. Go to the next one, which is smaller, like Clifford Chance. They produce $1.8 billion revenue, 2,586, smaller. But per lawyer revenue is higher, 725,000. Go down to Linklaters. Some of you have heard these names possibly. And $1.8 billion, smaller than other ones, 2,100 people, $860,000 revenue. Look at Wachter Lipton. This is one single law firm in one single office in the world, and only 248 lawyers. Per lawyer revenue is $2.5 million year-on-year basis, not partner revenue I'm talking about. Okay, so does the size matter? Is the first question. Okay. To me, I think size matters only to the extent you are a right size. There's nothing like big or small. And bigger you grow, sometimes I take a little contrarian view. Sometimes you become machine, and then becomes, if you're particularly in a people business, it becomes very difficult to manage the expectation. Look at, we benchmark. I studied for 2.5 years global HR policies of different organizations, not only law firms, and then develop certain contrarian thinking, I would say. These are the top 10 firms in the world. We are known as the best Indian law firm in the world. This Financial Times review. 70% of our client base is in the US. And if you see, we are in size number 9. But consistently in all the service value, we are ranked number 1. Okay? What we found was there are 3 things that really help people. One, education. Every single morning we have a continuing education class, 9 to 10. and everyone has to attend on a timely basis. If you're 1 minute late, it's considered half a day leave. I'm sure you like that. Because if you want to benchmark the timeliness in India, a big problem is discipline. So we have a very strict rule. People love that. Number 2, technology. If you use technology, you'll double the productivity. Okay? And number 3, management tools, like balanced scorecard we follow. And that is actually allowing us to capture at least 3 or 4 times more value. And that is the lesson that I learned. Another thing, our law firm has become a case study in management schools in the US. John Wiley did a study. Harvard Law School has just begun a study, and Cambridge wants to look at a law firm. We developed a model. After studying all that, I became an ardent student of an organizational behavior. That's been my most favorite subject. Of course, I'm still not qualified to go to management schools. But this is a model, what we call, it's John Wiley in the US published his Organizational Excellence Journal. And in that, this case study of ours was published. It's called Management by Trust in a Democratic Enterprise. A law firm shapes organizational behavior to create competitive advantages. The most important competitive advantage you can create, and I can talk to you when we are in question and answers. I'll be happy to help you. And finally, if you are a successful organization, most important thing that motivates people is commitment to society and the social sector, and how we have been focusing on that. So these are a few things that I really figured out. And just to let you know 1 or 2 things, because lawyers always deal with definitional context, and one definition of leadership was given that you withstand anything that comes to you and you stand by. The way in which we defined, of course, everything, it's not a one single definition, is that leadership to me is inspirational. From technical, first 3-4 years you're technical, then you go to administrative, then you become manager. Manager tells people you do this, you do this, you do this, etc. But leader doesn't tell. He's inspirational. People look at him and you think you do the same thing. That's my definition of leadership. And we always, in the first interview, even before we have recruited, we always tell people to read Jim Collins' level 5 leadership. Of course, now people talk about level 6. But we always give that, and I'll talk to you about the recruitment strategy and stuff like that. Our attrition ratio last year, if you take May to last year, has been nearly 0. And thanks to some of my colleagues here, I think we have done a lot of contrarian stuff. I think I have 1 more minute to talk. Yeah. Please stop me, because lawyer will generally not give a free time.
I know, but when we are not, you are not charging. I think we need to wait.
So, okay, to me, when we all talk about strategy, because every time a lawyer looks at definition, right? Section 2, most of the acts. Strategy, what is strategy? Strategy to me is a differentiation you create, which differentiation, even if known to others, cannot be copied. If it can be copied, it is tactic, it is not a strategy. So everything we look at is a strategic thing. So let whole world know what we are doing, but still, can they copy? Not very easily. That's one thing. Second, we'd like to do a lot of experiments, because we are a little tiny organization compared to you all. I'm the youngest, my organization is the youngest one. And I too am very young, you can see my gray hair. But we have taken a lot of contrarian approach. We said no headhunting. We have by far the best talent coming from world over. Okay? We don't go for headhunting. Because the Americans, where my work is most of the time, they are taught all jungle words. Headhunting, predator, killing instinct, everything. It's because it's still Wild West, you still don't come out of that mindset. So we don't go for headhunting. 2 advantages. Most competitors feel very comfortable working with us. It's an age of not competition, it's an age of competition. Cooperate and compete. A lot of competitors feel very comfortable working with us, where we don't have some strengths, otherwise, in generally respectful. Number 2, that we are not in the rat race, because in the rat race only rats win. Right? So again, we want to get out of that. We don't go for campus recruitment. Okay? What you do really is to tell stories. You experiment with different things and tell. More than advertising or other thing, if you tell stories, I think that's the best way to motivate people and go around that. So those are some of the things. For another thing that we have done, even in the evaluations, even if you do, for example, you get A grade, next year, even if you do better, you don't get A grade. You may get even B if you do not show that you have made 2 other people successful. If you are successful, you are never successful unless you make to other people successful. Even as an organization, we try to help other organizations. But I think these are some of the things. I think I have completed my 5 minutes. I'm sorry for that.
No.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. I think you heard the perspectives of the panelists. Let's give a hand. Size doesn't matter. Size and scale. Ultimately, you can take a very different approach, very contrary view, but still you can be very successful, which shows that leadership, innovativeness, develop self and others. He talked, I think, he never talked like a corporate international tax consultant. He talked about people's manager. Develop self and others. The hallmark of a good leader is not only inspirational, who can cope up with change, but, who can develop people. I think Rajiv said it in his talk. I think, at the end of your career, when you reflect on it, how many leaders you would take it as a role model? You may find one, you may find two. What does it mean? Where do they lack? Are they self-centered? I think this is where HR can play a role. When you're talking about aligning strategies, business strategies, I think the people strategies are very much aligned to this. I don't want to go into the debate which one is first, then is a egg and chicken case. You can say that put the right people in the bus, take off the wrong people and put them in the right seats, they will take you where you want to go. It's a debate which we should not enter. That's what Sujata has cautioned us. Let us not get into these academic exercises for the sake of creating an interest. But now, leave it to you, ladies and gentlemen. You have got 15 minutes to talk. Raise any questions to any of the panelists, and they're given a different perspectives. I would be happy that if you address to all of them. Over to you. Yes, please. Yeah.
My question is to Mr. Desai. I just wanted to know what are some of the steps that you've taken that have had 0% attrition?
I'll deal with that.
You can
okay,
talk.
I think, I'm sorry. I'm blinded with what I have on myself. See, the fundamental thing that I always looked at, even as an individual, as an organization, is happiness quotient. All of us, I think, and most of the time, sometimes depending on the organization, you have some more liberty. But I try to see, are we happy? Now, happiness, we have to explain to people that there is nothing like constant happiness. A graph is always up and down. That training must be given, that sometime you'll be down, sometime up. Only time you are constantly happy when you are dead, because cardiogram will come straight. Okay? So, okay. But what we look at is happiness quotient. So you have to measure happiness. Now, there are a number of different ways in which you can also do the same thing. And one result is, of course, the nearly 0% attrition. It is not that in the past we never had, but we learned over a period of time. So what we really need to do is to put processes in place which will at least reflect some kind of happiness quotient. And all of you know about it, that money is not the only one. But the initial 90 days you spend on a person makes a lot of difference. And we talk more on culture, philosophy, and stuff like that. Every organization is like an individual. Every individual looks similar, but is not identical. Similarly, every organization, everything looks similar. And therefore, we try to use the same tools to do the same thing, right? But organization, like individual, has an organizational philosophy, organizational psychology, organizational culture, organizational, family, or whatever you call it. I think we need to look at the whole thing. And as he rightly said in the beginning, that, these are benchmarking, is most to just look at and see, experiment with new things. So constantly you experiment with those things, and some processes you put in place. You never control people. You only control processes. Yeah. But putting processes in place as adaptable to your organization is a critical part. For example, just one small thing I'll tell, and I'll stop here, is one process we have is called PAL process, PAL, performance, attitude, and loyalty. All three matters. Today, people only look at the performance in terms of tangible terms. But attitude is still often missed out, and loyalty is also considered that no longer loyalty. Loyal people, slightly less efficient sometimes, but provide more stability to the organization. So you don't accept complete inefficiency. Mr. Palkiwala, who was also to some extent my mentor, he taught me one thing. don't mind hiring slightly less efficient people, but do not hire slightly less honest. Same principle Jack Welch straight from guts, he says, only boss you have is who? Customer, right? And same way he said, but somebody makes numbers but does not have value system is going to create a lot of problems. So again, these are some of the things we felt.
Is
and
anyone,
I can go on.
Yeah. Anyone would like to add? Anyone would like to add? Yes, next question, please. Can I take here and then come back? Please, go ahead. Sorry.
My question is addressed to Rajiv. It's a very simple question. I'm sure you answered it many times, but it's a profound, it's a very profound question. You talked about developing leadership, and you defined it as harnessing the internal energy of leader and getting him to the level that he never gives up. How do you harness that internal energy? Because most organizations, leadership comes through titles, through power, and this is how it goes. So how do you get the guy to harness it?
Again, these are very profound questions, as you said, and that's what the book is all about. But in just a nutshell, the fact that titles and position have anything to do with leadership effectiveness, that theory was debunked in India 100 years ago. In 1910, when Gandhi showed us a way. He had no title, he had no position, he had no political office, he had no patents to his name, he was a very ordinary person. And so the idea that there is any correlation between title and position and effective leadership, let's not even talk about it, because Gandhi had none of that. And yet we hope that the people that we lead in our organizations have even an iota of loyalty that you talk about that people had to Gandhi's cause. So it's got nothing to do with position power. Now the question is, how do you harness that energy? Well, 3 levels. First of all, at the individual level, you need to really be honest with yourself and be clear, what is my purpose? Because how Gandhi found his energy? When he got thrown out of the train in South Africa and he made it his life's purpose to fight for equality and justice. Now, every time they beat him up, he grew stronger. He reimagined a free India, and that gave him energy again. It was his clarity of purpose. I have asked people all over the world, in over 100 cities, in every industry, in government, political bosses, military bosses, corporate bosses, sir, ma'am, what's your purpose? And the average answer I get, that's a very deep question. Nobody's asked me that before. And the question I want to follow with, which I don't out of respect, is you manage 100,000 employees all over the world and you were waiting for somebody to ask you what your purpose was? You call yourself a leader? So personal energy comes from clarity of purpose. But with that must come clarity of values. Okay? Because purpose alone will give you energy, but purpose without values gives you Hitler. Purpose with values gives you Gandhi. So together, the combination of purpose and values gives you the energy. That's individual energy. Now you have to understand that if you want to make some change in the world, you cannot do it in today's complex world all by yourself. So the second level of energy in the organization is to treat your direct reports as your co-leaders and harness their energy by meeting their needs, by helping them align their purpose, their values with what you're trying to do. Only those people who believe in your purpose and values will give you their followership. So this idea of treating your direct reports as co-leaders, only if you're humble and confident at the same time can you do that. And finally, by managing those brains, bones, and nerves that I talked about in the morning, you will give the whole organization energy. Otherwise, energy will leak. So I don't know if that's...
Yeah.
Something related to this. So in today's context of social media, where leaders used to be in ivory towers and glass walls, how does leader bring him closer to his team members?
Well, social media only makes it, in my humble opinion, social media only makes it easier for you to be in touch with reality, be in touch with the people around you. It's a wonderful tool to actually, talk about what your purpose is, talk about what your values, and hope that more and more people will join their energy with yours, and then we create a small change in the world.
Yeah, thanks.
My question is more HR professional related. I realized you're not much a fan of Hayes' job evaluation and scores. But what do mammoth organizations like the Aditya Birla group, like the IBM or Tata's, for a fact, do in order to structure their organization if it is not for J's? Just playing a devil's advocate here. So
I think, Rajiv, you made that statement.
Is this the question directed to me?
You made the statement.
Yes, sure.
Where you said that, Hay is very outdated in the current context, why we're still looking. I think from that statement she is making that.
So all I was trying to say was this, that the Hay system of job evaluation, of calculating Hay points, was designed in the manufacturing era, where the scope of the job, how many people that work for you, the size of the budget that you manage, is what determines your compensation in the end. I'm just questioning, I don't have all the answers, I'm just questioning, in today's day and age, where size of job in terms of number of people reporting to you or the size of budget that you manage is less important in terms of the impact that you can have for the organization, should we still be using that system to evaluate pay? I personally believe that you should pay people as much as you need to pay people based on the value they bring, regardless of the size of their budget or the size of their staff. Because if you pay on the basis of staff and budget, then I will always ask for more money and I will always ask for more people, and that's detrimental to the organization.
Rajiv, in a lighter vein, Hay has heard you and they changed the model now.
Fantastic.
Because I've just got it done. I've been following Hay for the last 30 years. We've just done it recently. Same issue, number of people, the impact, all been. Now they started
that's music.
Making a law. So you may like to revisit now. But it's a very valid point. Yes, please.
My question is to Mr. Nishit and Rajiv, both of them. You have quoted the example of a New York advocate's productivity. That was the best possible, Lipton Company. But coming back to the philosophy of Mr. Rajiv, extraordinary work can be get done from the ordinary person. Is it applicable for that Lipton and Company? Are they giving something meager salary? Are they giving something, accepting average people? Because if you pay some peanuts, only monkeys will come. You have said rightly that rat race, we are not participating. Only rats win or lose. Same is true here also. For quality, it has cost. For quality, it has to be some intrinsic values in the human beings which are God-gifted, which you cannot just randomly satisfy or solace yourself that extraordinary work can be done from the ordinary person.
Yes.
Yep. I think I, first of all, must say that ordinary people can do extraordinary work. How they are mentored, how they are brought into the culture, how you build teams, how you do other things. I have found most ordinary looking people coming up and developing so well. So we are never blinded by only the glamorous marks and stuff like that, at least. And what I have found is that, see, in the educational institution, there is only up to this much they teach you. Really speaking, you have to really, so 1/3 is for the school, but 1/3 depends on organization, 1/3 depends on the individual. So as I mentioned, that every single morning, no law firm in the world trains their people in such a rigorous manner as we do. Therefore, you can create, and we have found very ordinary people. Another important thing, we are so blinded by fast movers. Okay, there is a very nice book you must read that if you have not, is Weird Ideas That Work. Even hire some slow learners. Okay, there are some, because people have their own, as I said, each individual is similar but not identical. Some people take longer time to understand, some people take 3 years it takes really, but you have to understand the potential as well. I'm not just mentioning. But it is not that everybody will move at the same rate. So you have to give 1,000 days. So 100 days for initial induction, mostly on culture and value system rather than money. So psychology has to be changed. And number 2, you give 1,000 days for people whom you recruit to develop themselves. Because some will show very fast progress, but then suddenly like people run fast and they fall down. Yeah. So I agree with you very much that ordinary people can do extraordinary things. Yes.
Pygmalion Effect, My Fair Lady.
There is no sacrosanct rule, but I think
the greatest example is a village girl has become the My
topper.
Fair Lady. It's what the Pygmalion Effect is to a large extent. So what is important, it is not just the IQ what we pick it up sometimes from the campuses, but the EQ also which makes a difference. That is what Nitesh has said it earlier when he quoted. It is not only the competence, but it's also the attitudes which are important and the commitment to an organization and loyalty talked about. This is what I call the psychic income. There is something which is beyond what you get in terms of titles, in terms of comp, in terms of positions. Why you stick for an organization? Many people have asked me, why did you stick for one organization for more than 30 years? Maybe I couldn't get a job anywhere else. That could be one. Or, it is because that there is something what Rajiv was talking about, how do you engage, and all of them were talking about the organizational view. What is that makes you different? I think if my organization has said that you can't be an active member of National HRD Network, I would have left GlaxoSmithKline many years ago. For me, that is self-fulfilling prophecy. That is my level of fulfillment which I want to do it. So each one has that. I think the beauty of a good people's manager is to spot them. It is not what Sujata has said very rightly, one size fits all. If I do that, I'll be able to retain everybody in this. You may not be in the same level, same position. One man you can retain, other man you can't retain because he needs a different medicine. So that is where the pulse income, what the pulse of the people is. So I think this is something you need to act as not only as a lawyer, as a tax specialist, but you need to act as a doctor. You need to act as a business manager. I think this is the combination of which, when you're dealing with the people's process managers, which we need to do it. I think, you see, you have any questions, please? I think, may I suggest that, I think, some of the questions may be addressed to Sujata as well as to Lima also, please, Meghna, so that...
Yes, but this one goes for Nishad.
Sure.
You mentioned daily 1 hour of training and 365 days. Maybe if you are working 5 days a week, then we do that mathematics. But to my mind, it's nothing less than a month and a half days training, or a month and a half, 1.5 months training in a 12 months time for each one of you. So what is that on a day-to-day basis you train, and what is that on a day-to-day basis you plan and impart the training?
Actually, it's 1.5 hour training. Between 8:30 and 8:55, we have training on management, because most lawyers become good technical lawyers, but they don't know about management at all. So what we did, we found that in Bombay, everybody is stuck in a traffic. So we said, why not use that time for educating on management things? So practice management. There's theory of management and practice management. So we moved to the best technology in the world, Cisco Unified Communication System, whereby our phone will automatically outbound dial. You don't have to dial in. So everybody is on sharp, on at dot of 8:30 is on the call. While they are traveling, we look at HR issues, we look at marketing, we look at financial management, new inquiries. Suppose some people is absent, everything in 25 minutes is done. That's one training that goes. And 9 to 10, we follow what at Harvard Business School they teach inverted T. Everyone must have one or two specialized focus subjects, but you must have lateral understanding of different laws. And daily development, law is more in newspapers than anything else. Very quickly, for example, on Monday they are going through all the corporate development, Tuesday funds, Wednesday tax, Thursday's litigation or mergers and acquisition, Friday we have knowledge management, stuff like that. So it's an inverted T system we follow, and that gives you breadth. So same small team can do bigger project. That's why we ranked number 1 and produced 3 or 4 times.
Thank you, sir.
Just for your
Thank you. I think I have one question to...
I'm sorry.
No. I have one question to Sujata. Sujata, you said that at least you have, in terms of metrics and passion, you need to have 1 or 2 key things which makes HR can add value to the business as a strategic business partner. Would you like to elaborate on this? What do you mean by that? In your personal view, based on your experience, what do you think, from your perspective, 2 key things which HR should really focus to make it as adding value to the business?
Yeah, I think in order to add value to the business, you should understand the business itself. You should understand the nuts and the bolts of the businesses. You need not be a salesperson. You need not be a functional expertise, but you should understand what is going to drive the business. And instead of looking at the competitors, I'll say, can I benchmark myself against myself? How will I anticipate what my customers needs? So for me, I'll understand how do I create the need for the customer, and how will I understand the customer before I receive a customer complaint. I think the need to be proactive is very, very critical for me.
Thank you. Meghna, one last question to you before we close it. You are an emerging young HR leader. Would you like to get some exposure to the business, or would you like to make your career only in HR? What is your short-term and a long-term career strategy?
Absolutely. I do the role of a business partner. I need to understand business, and I need to talk the language that my line leaders talk. At Britannia, I get opportunities to do that. I am training to become, so if I speak for myself, I'm training to become a TQM facilitator. I'm going to be running a manufacturing project. I'm going to be facilitating, rather, a manufacturing project where a group of manufacturing people, including leaders who spent 25, 30 years in the company, are going to be participating. So I get those opportunities to learn. Yes, I talk business, I sit with them, I discuss issues, I discuss challenges, and therefore I get into the solutioning mode. And that is how I learn, understand, and that's how I add value.
Thank you, thank you. We had this concept of 2 + 2 + 2 in GSK. If you want to become a business leader, you need to work in 2 functions. You need to work in 2 businesses. You need to work in 2 countries. Unless you do that, there is no development. I'm now not using the word leadership development, but how do you become a business leader? I think, people have approached different methods. I think, this is a great challenge we have. And I would like to sum it up. And first, let us give a big hand to the panelists. And thanks for your patience. One of church visitors has gone to a church and met the priest and asked the priest, can you please briefly describe your JD? What do you mean by JD? Your job role, job description, what you do. He said, hatch, match, and dispatch. He said, can you explain what is hatch, match, and dispatch? I said, when a child is born, he is brought here, I bless him. When a young couple gets married, again, I solemnize the marriage. And when somebody dies, I do the last rites. So HR also does hatch, match, and dispatch. Okay, and when I said it, someone in some forum, they said, some young lady raised her hand. I said, please tell me, can I add something? I said, hatch, match, patch, and dispatch. Okay, I think, it's important that you need to align the business with HR. You need to align them, engage them, and then also you need to track the events. As he said very rightly, all of them said, if you don't keep scoring, you are just practicing. Ultimately, what do you mean by this? Change is constant. It is not what competitors are doing, it's important. What is the competitive intelligence we are doing? For example, where are the typewriters today? If Remington, Godrej were fighting for, or Pepsi, Coke fighting, tomorrow something else. So I think that's beyond thinking innovation, what they're talking about. And I think a leader is one who cope up with the change, apart from inspiration and that. There are 4 kinds of people in this world. People who watch things happening, people who do not know what's happening, people to whom things happen. But distinguished minority are those who makes things happen. I think that is what we are talking, the role, a dynamic role of HR in today's world and in the future. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your excellent presentations. On behalf of all the fellow participants, give a hand. Thank you, sir.